There are so many bloopers and gags produced in The Office that they could almost make up their own show. Some of those cut gags are even funnier than the final version of the scene. Here are the best of those character-breaking, line-fumbling moments. Now that he's broken up with Jan, Michael is pitifully lonely and desperate enough to become borderline obsessed with a model and an office supply catalog. Desperate for companionship before he gets too old and can't have kids, Michael demands his subordinates each write down the name of a single woman they know that he can go on a date with. In the original scene, after a whole afternoon of Michael's self-pitying antics, Pam relents and says she has someone for him, her poor, unsuspecting landlady.
Michael? Are you Michael Scott?
The blooper during this scene came in the form of a poorly delivered line.
Is she hot? That was such a bad thing.
Ryan Howard, introduced to us in the pilot episode as a mild-mannered temp, has risen to the rank of corporate VP by the beginning of season 4. When he reintroduces himself to his favorite branch in Scranton, neither his 5 o'clock shadow, nor his Bluetooth, nor his new expensive suit succeed in getting anyone to respect him the way he wants. The people who don't like him continue not liking him, and the people who do won't stop treating him like he's still the adorable little office temp that everybody likes to pick on. In the original scene, Ryan snaps and admonishes Michael in front of the office.
I am your boss now. You're gonna have to treat me the same way you treated Jan.
In the blooper, Steve Carell and Brian Baumgartner imitated him, and he began laughing.
But you...
After he finished laughing, BJ apologized.
I'm really sorry I broke. That was too good.
This episode begins with a despondent Phyllis telling her coworkers that she was flashed by a man in a trench coat after she stopped to help him with directions in the parking lot. Michael goes back and forth between making crass, inappropriate jokes and trying to host a series of women's appreciation seminars and events for which, as Jim points out, he is completely unqualified to manage.
I would like to apologize for all of the men who thought this was a laughing matter.
Meanwhile, Dwight announces the creation of a very serious indeed anti-flashing task force that will be run entirely by him, even though he has no clue how to investigate a crime and local police are already on the job. While explaining the task force to his coworkers, he refers to Phyllis as Phallus before apologizing.
Phyllis, sorry. I've got penises on the brain. Back to work, everybody.
Naturally, a scene like this would be hard to get through with a straight face. The cast tried it multiple times, breaking constantly. At one point, Rainn Wilson, who played Dwight, tried to muscle through and complete the scene.
That is a risk that we have to... No, I know what you're saying.
Why do you keep going?
With Michael and Pam out giving sales training presentations to the other regional branches, Jim and Dwight are in charge of the office. Things immediately take a turn for the worse when they realize they've forgotten Kelly's birthday. Kelly is angry, and when Dwight stands up for Jim, she grows even angrier.
Screw you, Beat Farm. I didn't forget your birthday. I would never do that.
Guys.
Jim tries to salvage the situation before Dwight yells back and makes it worse by promising her a cake and a party that afternoon. It's probably not that surprising that a scene like this might have been a little too much fun to shoot. In other takes, every time John Krasinski steps in to lower the temperature, Rainn Wilson shoots him a shocked, wild-eyed look.
Hey, guys. Cool.
Stop doing that. It makes no sense.
By the third failure, they're all a little bit frustrated, but still having plenty of fun. At the beginning of the 5th season, the Scranton branch participates in a company-wide weight loss competition. Naturally, things go astray. Kelly starves herself and tries to buy a tapeworm from Creed. Dwight, after insulting several of his coworkers for their weight, tricks Phyllis into going on a non-existent sales call only to abandon her, forcing her to burn calories on her walk back.
There was no client. Dwight drove me to an abandoned warehouse 5 miles away and pushed me out of the car.
Holly sets up an HR meeting to address the madness, but Michael ruins it by donning a semi-deflated sumo suit and appearing in character as Michael Clump, an insulting celebration of overweight people.
This big fat pig is beautiful.
The original scene is an Office classic, but the gag version is even better.
Well, hello everybody.
Carell had to try multiple takes before everyone was able to hold in their laughter. An excited Andy and a not-so-excited Angela have decided at her insistence to book Schrute Farms as their wedding venue and are planning a lunch break trip to check it out. Problem is, proprietor Dwight doesn't know how to give acceptable directions.
Walk until you hear the beehive.
When Andy brings this up, Dwight insists the directions are perfectly normal.
How could it be more clear?
In the bloopers from the scene, nobody can keep a straight face as Ed Helms tries out some bizarre, obviously ad-lib lines.
If you are attacked by territorial crows.
It clearly took quite a few tries to get a usable take. Pam is pregnant with her and Jim's first child, but she's resisting everyone's attempts to get her to the hospital. If you ask her, she'd say she wants to wait until after midnight for insurance purposes, but the reality is that she's scared of going into labor and wants to drag it out. Jim is slowly losing it trying to get her to the hospital, and at one point relies on Michael to tell him when her contractions start coming every 5 minutes. When he finds out they're now coming every 2 minutes, he yells at Michael for not informing him earlier.
We waited too long. 2 minutes doesn't do us any good. Well, what happened to 4 and 3 minutes?
We're okay, Jim.
In other takes, the actors struggle to make it through the scene without cracking.
No, what?
You gotta hold it together, okay, man?
The kickoff to season 4 is Meredith ending up hospitalized after Michael hits her with his car in the parking lot. She has a minor pelvic fracture and gets a rabies shot after the doctor finds out she might have been bitten by a bat when one was trapped in the office during the previous season. This prompts a guilt-stricken Michael to launch a fun run race for the rabies cure, despite the fact that Meredith likely doesn't have rabies. And as Jim pointed out, it's already been cured. While he's organizing all that, Pam rallies the coworkers for a lunch break carpool to visit Meredith in the hospital. In a scene that didn't make the final cut, Steve Carell can't get his line right. When Jenna Fisher tells everyone, quote, "Okay, we're leaving for the hospital at 1, Carell is supposed to respond with, quote, "like a freedom tree?" Instead, he trips all over the line.
Okay,
So,
we're all leaving for the hospital at 1 o'clock.
so freedom tree.
I can take 3.
In season 7, Jim, Dwight, and even Michael, all seasoned and talented salesmen, lose a major potential client to rival traveling rep Danny Cordray of Osprey Paper. Michael promptly calls the sales team to a brainstorming session upon returning to the office and asks everyone for ideas to outmaneuver Cordray.
Stanley, how do we combat him?
You sell better?
Okay.
Michael mistakes Stanley's sarcasm for indifference, tells him to leave, and suggests he has diabetes. Stanley insists he doesn't have diabetes and would like to stay for once, as Cordray affected his paycheck, but he eventually leaves.
See, I could tell by the sound you made when you stood up that you have... Okay, yes, Phyllis?
That scene took several tries to nail. Initially, when Michael said his last line to Stanley, every cast member in the room lost it.
See, just the noise you made when you stood up. I could...
One of the major storylines of season 3 was the merging of the defunct Stamford, Connecticut branch with the one in Scranton. Martin, one of the Stamford transplants, is a former convict who'd been briefly imprisoned for insider trading long before starting his career with Dunder Mifflin. Once he finds out about this, Michael tries awkwardly defending Martin simply because he's black and Michael is worried about stereotypes.
But I just want to declare publicly that I trust him completely.
Then, when his subordinates start inquiring about prison and pretending to wish they were in it, Michael sees Martin as a threat to office morale and his fun boss shtick. In one scene, Michael barges into the break room where Martin is casually explaining his prison time to his new coworkers.
Been a lot of fun talk about prison today, but I am here to scare you straight.
In the bloopers, not knowing the camera was rolling, a crew member audibly starts talking in the background, forcing everyone to reset for a new take.
We're rolling, Melissa.
Hi, how are you?
I thought somebody just said Mel.
In another take, Steve Carell is delivering lines in his iconic purple bandana when the group begins laughing.
Where did you pinch him?
Dunder Mifflin Infinity, Ryan Howard's new paper-buying online portal that he hopes will modernize the ailing company, is going live. To celebrate, the office decides to order some pizza for a branch party. Michael comes out of his office to announce that hot food is on the way.
Good news.
We get to go home.
In a different take, Leslie David Baker doesn't just say that line, he shouts it, joyously, wide-eyed, throwing his hands into the air and leaning back in his seat.
I have some good news.
We get to go home!
This prompts Steve Carell, followed quickly by the entire cast, to break into uncontrollable laughter. Leslie himself is laughing harder than anyone. John Krasinski is howling so hard he holds his hands over his face. If you don't at least crack up watching this, you may be dead inside. If you're watching a video about The Office, you've almost certainly seen what's arguably its greatest episode, Season 4's dinner party. Michael and his borderline psychotic girlfriend and former boss, Jan, host an after-work get-together at their condo with Jim, Pam, Andy, Angela, Dwight, and Dwight's former babysitter, whom he brought as a date. The episode, in which Michael and Jan's relationship unravels before the eyes of their squirming guests over the course of an evening filled with awkward house tours, failed business pitches, games that nobody likes, a screaming match about having kids, passive-aggressive arguments between the hosts, a very late meal that both Pam and Michael think Jan is poisoned, and much more, is a triumph of cringe comedy that's never been matched.
Michael and Jan seem to be playing their own separate game, and it's called Let's See How Uncomfortable We Can Make Our Guests.
The blooper reel is even more entertaining. The episode was famously hard to shoot because everyone in it simply could not stop laughing long enough to get good takes. In one take, Steve Carell talks about Michael's tiny plasma screen TV before saying, quote, "Right over here, Jim," to John Krasinski.
I guess what surround sound means is that right over here, Jim.
Co-writer Lee Eisenberg said, "There's nothing more satisfying than having Steve Carell barely able to get through his lines."
Oh, Jesus. This is terrible. We'll never finish this episode.
Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies and TV shows are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.